In this section, we will display and modify SELinux file contexts. With SELinux, everything has a label. Processes have a label, files have labels, even users, ports, and network interfaces have labels. Many utilities have been modified to include a capital Z option in order to display the label. For example, the ls command has a capital Z option that will show the discretionary access controls at the beginning, the owner and the group associated with that file, and then the SELinux context. This context consists of the user field, the role field, and the type field, and then a sensitivity. It's also possible to have a category at the very end of this context. For the targeted policy, we're primarily concerned with the type field, so we'll mostly just be looking at the _t types as we look at each of these processes and files. The ps command also supports a Z option and shows the label as the first column. If I combine this looking at all the processes on my system and then narrow down and look for example, the HTTP process, I see that the HTTPD process, or the Apache web server, has a type of HTTPD_T. The HTTPD_D_T is then allowed to read content from the document root. So for example, an ls capital Z on var www shows that the var www HTML directory has a type of HTTPD_sys_content_T. Additionally, the CGI bin directory has a different type, HTTPD_sys_script_exec_T. The policy would have an allow rule that allows the HTTPD_T, the type associated with the process, to not only read but also execute scripts from the CGI bin directory. It may help to look at an actual rule. There's an SE search command that will show you the rules that are available. The capital A option will search all types. If I use a T option, I can then specify a specific type. Let's do one that's a little easier to type in, like TMP_T. I'm also going to narrow down my search and only deal with rules that are associated with files. There are also classes such as directory and other types. And this will scroll off the screen, so we'll go ahead and just look at a sample of them, the last few entries that come up. These are allow rules. Allow rules are the keyword allow. They're a type and then another type, a source type and a destination type. They may include a class, such as I narrowed down my request for only rules that were associated with files. And then this one is allowing mount_T to interact with temp_T with IO controls, reads, get attributes, locks, and opens. If I look up a line, the SMBD_T type can interact with TMP_T by also doing writes and creates and appends and other types of entries. So each of the allow rules is simply allowing can type A, when interacting with type B, on a certain class of file do certain actions. Most of them are associated with file opens when we're looking at file rules. So again, this is why if I look at the process information for HTTP and I look at the context of the files that are associated with the web server, the allow rules that exist would allow the interaction of HTTPD_T to be able to read HTTPD_sys_content_T in order for the web server to read its content. There would be a different rule that would allow for the reading and executing of scripts within the CGI bin. One thing that can keep an application from working as expected is a context to be incorrect. In general, when I create a new file, it gets the context of the directory where it's created. For example, if I look at the context for my home directory, it's admin_home_T for its type. If I create a file in this directory and I look at the contents of that file, The context also shows admin_home_t for its type. If I was to move this file to the var www html directory, and then I can look at the parent directory as well as the contents of that directory. In the case of the move command, I preserved permissions. So I preserved the admin_home_t. A new file, for example, within here, if I call this cal2, a new file would have gotten httpd_sys_content_t. The web server may not be allowed to read files of the type admin_home_t, and therefore would not be able to present this file as content through the web server to clients. If I wanted to fix this context, I have a couple of options. There is a chcon command for changing the context. It does allow me to specify a -t so that I only need to specify the type that I'm changing. It also has a --reference equals option, so I could reference another file. For example, referencing the cal2 file as I set the context for cal. A better option, however, is a command called restorecon. It's designed to restore the context according to a set of definitions of what is expected for these. So if I use restorecon on my var www html cal file, and then I look at the context again within that directory, it now has the httpd_sys_content type. It is not necessarily picking up its context from its parent directory at this point. Although in many cases it is, it's actually using a database of definitions. I can view these definitions with an SELinux command. I'm specifically looking at the fcontext or file context information, and I want a -l in order to list these. It will list all of the contexts which are defined, which can be a fairly long list. Within these definitions, we can use a regular expression pattern matching for what we want for file names to match. We can specify a class. We can list all files, symbolic links, regular files, for example, or directories. And then we can specify the full context that we want to have for this particular match. So for example, if I take my command again and I do a grep for var www, the option at the top of this list is for var www and anything inside of that directory to end up with the context of httpd_sys_content_t for its type. A more exact match would override this setting. For example, the next line down will match on any subdirectory that is named cgi-bin, and it will reset the context then to an http sys script exec type instead. The most specific match is the context that will end up being applied to that particular entry. If I didn't have an entry, as I do not, for var www html cal, it would end up using its parent or even this var www match, if that is the most exact match for restorecon. As another example, perhaps I want my web content to live in a different location. So maybe I'm going to make a directory directly off the root for websites. If I look at the context for this particular directory, it got a type of default. If I do a restorecon on this directory and I look at its context, it's still a type of default. If I want this directory and its contents to have a specific type, specifically one that can be read by the HTTPD process, then I need to set that type. And I have a couple of choices of how I do that. Let me create a file in here to begin with. I'll touch inside of websites and index.html, for example, and maybe an index2.html. One option I have is to use the changecon command, and I could reference my var www HTML directory and set the context for one of these files. Let me list what those contexts are first. Within websites, again, they got defaults because of their parents. So change con -- reference. I'm going to reference the var www HTML, and I'm going to apply this to simply one of the files that I have in here, and then look at the context that I have. So I made a change. However, if I do a restore con on websites and its files, and I look, it's gone back to default. So ideally what I would like to do is add a definition so that RestoreCon will know that I want /websites and everything under it to have this HTTPD sys content type. I can do that with the same SEManage command. SEManage, the subcommand is fcontext because we're managing file contexts. Instead of listing this time, I want to add a rule. I'm going to specify specifically all file types. I'm only interested in what the type is. I want it to be httpd _sys _content _t. And then I need my pattern matching. They're all going to be websites. And then I want to match off of anything that's within there. So with my regular expression pattern matching, I'll put a parentheses /. Close the parentheses and a question mark, so that I end up with a slash and 0 or more characters after that, question mark being 0 or 1 of anything within those parentheses. When I make this definition, it will add an entry to a file in a subdirectory underneath etc SELinux. It will also update the real-time information that's under the virtual file system of /SELinux. Now that it's been defined, I can do a restore con, and I can do that recursively on my website's directory tree, and it should change all of them. In order to see this, I will also add a VV for very verbose, and it'll echo to me the changes that it made. So for each of the objects that it found that was not correct, it listed what it was, and then it listed what it changed it to. So we changed the index.html file from an unconfined user object role default _t to an unconfined user object role httpd _sys _content _t. And it did that recursively for the directory in each of the files below there. So ideally, I can find my context by using the RestoreCon command in order to set things back to where I want them to be. If a definition needs to be added, I can use an SEManage command in order to add that definition. The capital Z option can be used in order to view the context by adding it to the PS command for processes, the LS command for listing files. You can also add it to the netstat command for looking at port information.